Okay, now if it was up to me, this session would be a lot more practical. Everyone drums, we all practice like removing a top head or something. But obviously we don't have the time or resources for that. So instead, the session is going to be a little more abstract, and we can use this opportunity to go in line with the PDQB level 6 requirements. So in the level 6 exam, they'll ask you to do a few things with regards to drum tuning or maintenance. It'll be different depending on who's your examiner. But yeah, okay, I should probably put another disclaimer before we start now. This session is for if you've like never tuned a snare drum before. That's for you. Okay, obviously, if you've tuned a snare drum before and you know how to do it, yeah, then this is not for you. You obviously you have the skills, you have the knowledge of how to do it. Yeah, so this is just for like if you haven't tuned a snare drum ever. Okay, now in a similar way to like how I did the rudiment session earlier, I'd like to start off with a little bit of theory. Now, because this is supposed to be a practical session, I did try to make it as engaging as I could. So, in my hand, I have an extract, okay, from the level 6 PDQB exam, okay. I'm going to hand it out to everyone. I've got enough copies for all of us. And then like maybe for the next 5 or 10 minutes, I want you guys to try answer this question to the best of your abilities. I do have a few pens here if anyone doesn't have pens. Okay. There's nothing to add, don't worry.
That's going to be in the portfolio. So.
Yeah, the part and portfolio. Goes towards our valuable.
Who needs pen? Who needs pen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now I must warn you guys. This question from the PDQB exam is a very, very abstract question, and unless you know exactly what they want from you, you're most likely going to get it wrong. But that's okay because we're not here to laugh at you guys. We're just here so we can learn stuff. Okay. Yeah. So I will give you guys the next 5 to 10 minutes to try answer this question, and then try answer it to the best of your abilities. Okay.
Like confused, like I'm confused. Like that answer.
Okay, yeah, you're right. If you feel confused, that's a normal feeling. For those online, the question is, what elements must be what elements must be present to successfully produce sound? Explain each one fully and give examples to the value of 12 marks. Okay. Now this is from the exam. I know I had to do this in my exam, and I had no idea what was going on, but it's okay. But like I said, we're not here to like judge you for getting it wrong. We're all here to learn. Afterwards, I do have the memo, and then I will give you guys the answers. Don't worry. But do try answer them. Be as abstract or as specific as you want to. Okay, I'll give you guys time.
No.
Try anything. I know it's a very abstract question, but try anything.
When it says produce sound, is it like in general for what instruments or like
I think it wants in general, but like obviously it says give examples, so we'll give band examples for snare drum examples. Kate, you better write something, Kate.
I do.
Yeah, you did. Produce sound.
I got air in here, no sound in the space, so you can at least have it.
Not too bad, honestly. Don't tell us now, though. We'll get to it.
It's bad enough now. Imagine just showing this to the examiner. What is this?
Vocal move test.
Try, Donnie, try. It is a very abstract question, right? Everyone who answers this question is like, okay.
It's getting E plus.
Sorry?
So every.
Sure, oh yeah,
Just
that was a stop.
The question is there truly sound that no one uses?
If you want to join the philosophy session, it's actually the next session. You're unlucky or unlucky. The philosophy session is 45 minutes.
That's later teaching now.
Yeah, pleasure to you. Okay. Still writing? Okay, good. No problem, no hurry, no hurry. Yeah, some people are trying it.
I got 3 points, that's enough.
I got fools.
So, like I said earlier, unless you know exactly what they want, but these 4 specific answers, you'll probably get it wrong. But again, it's okay.
Can you just solve answers about anything?
Do they give you like, I don't know, like sample to study this stuff?
Yeah. This is from the book. So the answers are everything. It's all in the books. Yeah.
Did I ask you to define stuff? Like, ask like, what's the definition of? Like,
No, I don't remember the definition questions in the exam.
I was about to say, like, please don't be like, I have to know everything of that one.
That's for your school essay.
Yeah.
If you write a lot, then you'll probably get the marks.
No, I'm thinking 12 marks and
Yeah, 12, write the whole page and you'll get them.
While you guys are still writing, I'll tell you a story from when I was writing this exam, the PDQ level 6 exam. Paul Brown was my examiner, and when I got to this question, as I told you guys in the PDQ session earlier, I had no idea what to write at all, and so when I was like trying to guess answers, like Paul was walking around. And he came to me, he's like, actually, this is the answer, and this is the answer.
You came to your A, that's your cheesy.
Yeah, pretty much. So, you know, he helped us pass the exam. So, yeah, thanks, Paul Brown.
This video is recorded.
My question does this need to be more like what this is?
No order.
Oh,
Like you need. Okay, I'll give you a quick. You need 4 things. They don't have to be in any order.
oh.
I'm just happy with such enthusiastic.
Crowd.
Yeah, they're still writing. It's quite. Oh, look at these 2 there.
She's writing the whole essay, so.
You love to see it. You love to see it.
It's gonna be an introduction that can give it.
You'll get a muffler at the top. Don't worry.
If you want to see my answers. 1 out of 12.
Well, that's good enough. That's it's like, I don't know, just like theories.
Yeah, this is very theoretical. You're right. It's not very practical. But when we give examples, it will be a little bit more practical. But like, the question itself is very abstract. It's very theoretical.
What if we have said it's philosophical?
That's the next session, bro. Okay, cool. Anyone want to share their answers?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so let's hear it. Okay, let's hear it.
I got air pressure or got air pressure. There's air quantity because sound in spaces will be air.
Well, Jason, I want to tell you something. You're not wrong. Okay, that is sort of one of the answers. But I'll explain a little bit more when I give you the number. Okay.
I said force. You need something to create the sound.
Also not wrong. You're on the right track. You can take the track a little bit further. Anyone else have any other answers?
I have 2 more.
Let's hear it.
I got pressure. Yes.
Pressure.
And
Be a little bit more specific.
and as I said, the drum beat must be 8 times. You know what else?
Okay. Yeah. Drum metal.
It just have to be like, not too tight, not too like,
The what?
The screws that not to tight and not to loose on the drums.
They're just talking about sound in general. So
Uh,
I think if you want to do a drum properly and get a nice sound, yeah, maybe not too tight, not too loose. But yeah, good answer, not too bad. Siobhan, you're from essay, Siobhan. Surely there's one answer. Any answers that you're confident in?
No, I did very practical answer, like I went through all this, the things you need on a drum.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I'm sure one of them must be. No? Yes, no?
Okay, I'll give you my like final statement.
Let's hear it.
The Titan head with the cylindrical shell allows for the resonance when striking.
Okay, yeah. There's not a wrong answer. It's under one of the answers, I guess. Remo, what do we have?
Just elaborate on
Try. We're not here to long. Try.
Where I said a medium, sound needs a medium to travel through as it's produced as a wave. An example of this would be air.
that as sounds.
I said tone, better to elaborate on tone, but I also said apparatus. In order to produce sound, the user must use a piece of equipment as a means of creating sound. An example of such would be either a drum or a voice box, because you need pressure in order to create sound. Just something about this.
Okay, so I'll come back to your answer in 1 second. Tony, I want to hear your answer. He copied you. Okay, so Remo, I think you're pretty close. I think the one where you spoke about medium, that's more or less on point. That is one of the answers. And then what was the other one about the aftertone?
Apparatus.
Yeah, apparatus. That's also sort of one of the answers. Okay, so what i'll do now, I'm going to read to you. Sorry, Siobhan, yes.
Give it a try.
Sebastian, you did the exam, Sebastian. It's like for kids you haven't done this. Okay, but give it a try.
I'm very a little rusty, but I think the first thing is the originator.
Okay, Sebastian, I'm Sebastian. Give me a try. Okay. Let me give the answer. Okay, so this is from page 1.1.1, page 11. Okay, so you need 4 things. You need an originator, which is like your pipe or a drummer. You need a vibrating body, which is like the reed or your drum head. You need a medium, as Remo said, which is like air or water. And the 4th one is you need a receptor, so which is your ear.
So how much?
Let's go. You should have backed your answer, Tony. You had one. Yeah, no, you're right. Okay, so I'll explain these a little bit more. The originator is the source of energy which sets the vibrating body into motion. This may be a piper forcing air through a reed or a drummer striking a drum head.
So essentially, I was right.
Yes, yeah, more or less. You could have developed the idea a little bit more. Okay, that's the originator. Then vibrating body, which when disturbed or set in motion, send vibrations through the medium. The vibrating body can be virtually anything, but for our purposes, we refer to the blade of a reed or the drum head as the vibrating body. Okay. Then the medium through which the vibrations travel may consist of any form of matter. However, the density of the medium affects the quality of the sound and the loudness or volume. Okay. For humans, the best medium is air. I think someone had an answer. Okay, yeah. I remember when I did the exam, this is the only answer I could think of on that. You need atmospheres from which the one present on Earth. And that was the only thing I remembered. Yeah. Okay, and lastly, the receptor is normally the human ear. In electronic recordings, the microphone is the receptor. Okay. So, like I said, it's a very abstract question, unless you know exactly what they want. If you study the books and then you prepared for the exam, you probably get this one wrong. Or at least get like one few marks.
I don't know, so I think I was pretty much.
Okay. Now I do have one more piece of material for you, but don't worry, it's not an exam question or anything, it's just something cool. For those of you online, it is an exploded view of the drum. Okay. I know, I'm going to ask everyone. This is yours. So do you want one? Yeah. What did you say? Thank you. Yeah, so what I handed out to everyone is the exploded view of the drum. Yeah, so it's basically this, but if you explode it, I guess. Okay, Now, so before we move on to talking about tuning the instrument, let's just talk about what the instrument is and then the components of the instrument. So I can quickly go through some of them. So I'm using my drum as an example. Here we have the tension rods or bolts. Then over here we have the top ring or counter hoop. Then over here we have the hoop. I think so. Yeah. And then okay, my one doesn't, but like some of the other drums, you have these rods here. And these are your threaded tension rod housing, according to this apparently. Okay. You won't see them very often. Nowadays, I think they've more or less been done with. I think some manufacturers of drums will still have them. Okay, obviously the top snare is underneath here. I'll show you like when I flip over the drum. Then we have the bottom snare strainer, which is these two parts here that holds the snare in position, and then obviously the bottom snare, which I actually took out and I'll put it together later when we're talking about tuning the drum, and then. In a similar way to the top head, we have the tension rod guides at the bottom here, as well as the threads, and then the bottom tension rod, I guess. And yeah, so that is the exploded view of the drum head. It does have all the parts of the drum. You can also use it as a reference. But this is something, again, it's from the books, but they probably won't ask you to like label a drum in an exam or something. I think that's a little bit too simplistic. Okay, cool. So before we move on to talking about tuning the drum, let's quickly talk about some general maintenance, or should I say some care for the instrument. Okay, now again, this I got from the PDQB books. Although I did add in one. I did add in one more point from myself. Okay, so some of these points may seem obvious to most of us, but in my recent years of teaching school kids, they may not seem so obvious. Okay, so number one, on no account should any drum be laid on its side and used to sit on. Yeah, like I said, they're pretty obvious, but not to most people, or not to some people apparently. Okay, obviously, this causes permanent distortion to the shape, and replacement heads usually won't be able to be fitted because you distorted the shape. And obviously, it costs a lot of money to replace parts of the drum. The drums are a very expensive instrument, so please don't harm the drum. Treat it with care. Okay, number two, if you need to put the drum on the floor, but the floor beneath you is an uneven surface, it is advised to put your drum on the side instead of vertically. This way, any potential hazardous materials on the floor won't rupture our bottom head. Okay, we spoke about this a little bit earlier. Our tutors say always put it on the side when you're putting the drum head down, when you're putting the drum down. I know I told you guys this as well. You don't want to be in a position where you accidentally pop the bottom head just by putting it down. You know that the drum head do cost a lot of money. Don't take the chance. Just put it on the side. Yeah, it might get a bit scratched or dirty, but it's way better than having to replace the drum head. Spending money to replace the bottom head. Okay, number three. Monitor wear on the heads often, as they may rapidly deteriorate as a result of over-tensioning. Okay, we'll talk about that tensioning the heads a little bit later. But obviously, you want to be keeping an eye on your drum head. I know that we all have our own drums, or more or less. And do take notice of how the components are. Across time. If your drum head looks fine today, it might not be fine in a week or so. So do take notice of it, and if any changes occur, you might see the threads coming a bit loose, or the threads being a bit stretched. Then you know something's wrong here. You should probably go and change the drum head, because the last thing you want is when you're walking into the circle, you're about to play a set, and your drum head pops, and then it's a whole mess for the entire band, not just for you. Okay, so just be mindful of the instrument. I think that's what I should say. Be mindful of its components. Just know what's happening. Know what's happening with it. Okay. Number four, avoid extreme temperatures. Keep the drum in a warm and dry atmosphere. Under wet conditions, always dry off the drum consistently. Okay, so I think this applies to people in Scotland a lot more than us because it rains a lot there over in Scotland, and the drummers in Scotland will constantly need to keep wiping their head to make sure it's dry. For us, it's not so much of an issue. It doesn't rain as often here. I know, like every now and then, we might get a gathering to where it's so wet gathering that it's raining, and we need to take care of the top heads. Usually, I know some of us now have drum covers. It's sort of like shower caps, but like for drum heads. And so what do? You put it on top of the drum head while it's ready, so you can still practice on it. You still get more or less the same effect on it. And then just as you go onto the line, go into the circle, you pull out your drum cover, and then you play your set. Obviously, it'll get wet while you play your set. So when you come off after playing your set, then you need to re-dry our heads. Okay. Then lastly, keep lubricated with petroleum jelly or similar grease to provide lasting protection. Okay. Now, when they're talking about keeping lubricated, they're talking usually about two things. It's either the tension screws, these ones here at the bottom as well, or it's talking about the drum head itself. Usually, when you're refitting your drum head, whether it's the bottom head or the top head, you want to just like have some lubricant. I know we use Vaseline, but it works really well. Just apply a little bit on the rim of the head when you're putting it down, and then it will give your drum head a lot longer of a life than if you want to lubricate it. Same thing here with your screws here. If you want to have them at least a little bit lubricated, it will help a lot with the lifespan of the components. Okay, yeah. So I think that's as far as we'll talk about maintenance or care. I think most of it is straightforward. I'd hope so. But yeah. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, we don't have the time to like tune every part of the drum or get everyone a drum to tune. So we will go according to the PDQB guidelines. So in the level 6 PDQB exam, you will have three things. They will ask you three things. The first two are more practical things, and then the last one is more the examiner will ask you a question, and you'll have to answer the question orally. Okay, so the first one is correctly tension the drum head. Okay, so this is referring to the top head or the bottom head. And then number two is correctly use and set up the snare mechanisms. So here they're talking about the snare itself. How would you put it on the snare drum and set it up correctly? And then the third one is achieve total quality and balance. So obviously they're not expected to like set up a whole core of drums. So this is the one where the examiner will ask you the question: how would you go about setting up? How would you go about achieving total quality and balance? Okay, so I think let's talk about these. Give me 1 second to get a sip of water quickly. Cool. So, like I said at the beginning of the session, if you haven't tuned a drum before, this will probably be more informative to you. And if you have tuned a drum and you know how to do these kind of things, it's a simple procedure once you know how to do it, you have the knowledge, have the skills. Okay, so correctly tensioning the drum head. Can anyone tell me what they're referring to here? Yes, Cadence.
You screw them to the degree that it's not too tight in the top head stance, but it's not too loose, and it's tap it doesn't make the right sound.
Yeah, okay. That's more or less some of the answer. Ramon, you want to give it a try?
I would think you want the tension equal across all different screws and bolts.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's more or less what they're expecting you to do. In the exam, if the examiner does ask you to replace a top head of a drum, what you need to do is that you first of all you need to know how to screw down the drum head, and you need to know how to do it evenly. So let's say, okay, we take off the drum head, the examiner gives you a new drum head, and he asks you to screw it down. So you would place it here, you would line up all of your screws in the right slots, and then how we normally do it, how I would normally do it, is that if you start on one side with one screw, you would go directly opposite to the other screw. And that way you try and get it as even as you can. So you start here, then you would go here, and you would go back on the side to the next one here, and you keep going across the drum until you more or less comfortable with the tension. Okay, at that point, after you've done a bit of screwing down, going from opposite end to opposite end, you would use a drum tool. And this drum tool, I don't have it here unfortunately right now, but what it does is it checks the spacing, and it makes sure that all of your spacing is even. And we talked about this earlier. And it is one of the most useful tools that you will ever find when it comes to tuning a drum head. But you don't need to have a specific tool for it. I know a lot of people use the ruler, or some people just use their thumb. Like if it's wide enough, like my thumb just fits in this drum here, so I can use my thumb. I can actually feel it's a little bit looser here than it is on this side. Here it's a bit tighter, and I can't actually move my thumb here. So this is not as evenly as it can be. Yeah. So you don't want to have a very, like here, it's a little bit uneven, but it's not like too uneven. You don't want to have a drum head where you start to tune it, when you're tuning it, when you go adjacent screw, you don't want to be doing that. It's very easy for it to be slanted, in which case it won't be evenly tuned, in which case you probably fail that part of the exam. Okay, yeah, so you can use your thumb, you can use a ruler, you can use any object really, a firm object that'll fit here. Just as a reference to make sure that you are evenly tuning the drum. And then, like I said, obviously you want to be going at opposite ends so you don't end up with a slanted drum as well. Slanted top head as well. Okay, it's a very similar case with the bottom head. I can try yeah. You have your room here as well, your drum head and foot on here as well. You screw it down here with the slots here as well. And again, you don't want to be going to adjacent screws. You want to be going opposite. Yeah, that way it'll be as even as you can. So same thing here. You can use that tool just to measure whether it's even, and that way you can tell if it's slanted or not. Okay. Yeah, so like I said, there's no real trick to it. There's no secret to like tuning drums perfectly. And we'll talk about it a little bit more when we're talking about tonal quality and overall balance. Okay, let's move on to the second one, which is correctly using and setting up the snare mechanisms. Okay, so again, what do you think they're referring to here? Try. The snare mechanisms? Yes, Remo.
So when you're trying to install the snare mechanism, you want it to be right up against the bottom head. There's no gap in between.
Okay, good. That's a good answer. Anyone else want to try? There is one more thing I'm looking for, and not just having your snare not too high, not too low. One more thing. Tony, let's have a listen. Fantastic, Tony, fantastic. Okay, yeah. So again, they're referring to two things here, and like I took off my bottom snare, so I can show you guys when I put the snare in. You want to put your snare when you're installing the snare. You want to put it in a position where it's not too high off the drum or it's not too choked on the drum, and that way it must be just enough so it's comfortably sitting on the drum, and you'll get a nice vibration, nice rattle off it. Okay, and then as Donovan said there, you don't want a snare that's too stretched or too loose. Again, you'll get a very distorted sound. I hope it didn't break my snare. Yeah, you want to just evenly where the snare is stretched enough so you can get a nice rattle, a nice vibration off the head. Setting up the top snare is a little bit more tougher than the bottom snare. Just because the bottom snare you can feel it, you can rattle it if you need to. The top snare you don't have that luxury. You're just gonna have to go by inserting your tools, your keys into the appropriate slot, and then working by ear, tapping the top head. Yeah, that's how you have to do with the top head. But like with the bottom head, it's a lot easier because you can just put your snare on the snare is on the outside of the drum, and so you can feel it quite easily. You can feel if it's stretched, you can feel if it's off the head or if it's too tight on the head. Cool. So what I'm actually going to do now, I am going to put my snare back onto the bottom head just to show you guys how you go about doing this. Okay, so I'll start from one side. So obviously, in this position now, you can visibly see the snares off it's off the head, right? The snares off the head. Obviously, you don't want this to happen. This is a bad sense. This is a bad installation. So you keep adjusting it from this point. That's a bit tough here. There we go. Now I can start tightening it. Oh no, I just realized my space has been upside down the whole time. I wonder if I can put them on top. Okay.
Take your time.
Yeah, lucky we got time. Yeah, that's way better. Okay, so at this point you can see your snare, it's more or less on the head. It actually feels kind of tight, thing will loosen up a little bit. You can check on the sides here if the snare is touching the head at all the sides. If not, you can just make the appropriate adjustments to loosen up or tighten up the mechanisms. Sides have to be a little bit tighter. Yes. You are hoping to break my snare. Anthony will kill me. Anthony's definitely going
There's a recording from that.
He's going to find out sooner or later.
There's a recording, he's gonna watch it later.
Okay. Excuse the broken snare, but the point we're trying to make that we're trying to make is that you want your snare not to be too high or too low off the head, and you want it to be not too stretched or not too loose when you're adjusting your snare mechanisms. I know some drums it's a little different. The manufacturing of it, that the components, the mechanisms are not all the same. And that's okay, but all the drums will have like ways to adjust the snare. I know some of the drums, the premiers have the knob that you can turn, and that will adjust the snare. Some you need like a tool to adjust the snare. Okay. I don't know if I can take too much time fiddling with that. Let us continue. I'll go over this. Okay. Yeah, so the last one is achieving total quality and balance. This is not a practical question. This is an oral question. The examiner will ask you this question. How would you go about achieving total quality or achieving balance? Yeah, I'm asking you guys.
Well, you just
Try.
do it.
Yeah.
It's impossible to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry?
Did you just choose like one drum very nicely and two other drums to sound like that?
Okay, that's a good answer. Yeah. Any other answers?
You cry.
We want to fix this up.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So, now what they mean by achieving total quality or achieving balance, especially like if you're setting up a bunch of drums for yourself, it's going to be a process of trial and error, right? It's going to be a process of trial and error, with how you're setting up a drum, especially if you haven't done it before. If you're trying to achieve balance across a drum corps, a whole corps of drummers, you're going to have to be looking at like how tightly your drum heads are across the corps. You're trying to get as evenly tensioned drum heads across the corps. You want to get evenly tensioned snares across the corps. You also want to be looking at what kind of drumsticks that your drum corps is going to be using. If you're using a drumstick that's going to be too heavy, it might change or warp the sound that you're getting off your drum. Okay. We also want to look at how loud or how soft your core members play. If you play with a novice core versus if you play with a grade 2 core, the sound that you're going to get it's very different. But we'll talk about that a little bit just now. Okay. And then obviously, lastly, it also affects what kind of climate you live in. Affects how the drums will sound. We here in South Africa, our drums, we're going to inevitably tune them slightly differently to how the guys in Scotland will tune their drums, just because the climate is different. It won't be like vastly different, but there will be small adjustments that we will need to make, just so that we can get our drums to sound as nice as they can. Okay. Cool. So, like I was saying, with the novice core and the grade 2 core, I think it's a good example. Because usually, like a novice core, you would have very new drummers, you would have very shy drummers, maybe very timid drummers. So in that case, you'd want to have your top head, a little bit more choked, so we can get as much sound as we can through the bottom. So and the sound can travel quite nicely around the band in the circle. The judges can get quite a nice sound. You'd also want to have maybe a little bit heavier sticks, depending. If you have a very shy drum core, you really want to be try pushing some volume throughout those drums. And then like the opposite is true for like I guess a grade 2 band. There you don't have like very choked top heads. You want to have like more or less wet top heads. You want the snares on the top to breathe as much as they can. Get as much vibration as you can, because the drummers in grade 2, they will probably be of great quality, and then they can achieve volume with quite ease. However, and I should probably put a disclaimer at the beginning of the session. One thing I'm absolutely not going to do is tell you guys, okay, well, all novice core should set up the drums like this, or all grade 2 core should set up the drums like this. That's not what I'm here to do. That's not what I'm trying to do. Because I know someone's going to put up their hand and be like, oh, well, actually, we do ours differently, so you're wrong. And that is the truth. There's no one way to correctly set up a snare drum, like we discussed earlier. There are a few ways that you can set up a snare drum, depending on the components you have, depending on the players you have, depending on your core, what grade your core is. There isn't a one way to tune a drum. And like I said earlier, there's no secret tip or secret knowledge that I or anyone is going to give you that's going to help you tune the drum better. It really is just a process of trial and error, especially if you haven't tuned a drum before. However, like if you ask some of the older guys in our community, they've been tuning drums for like a long time now, so they know exactly how they want their drums to sound. And so for them, it isn't a process of trial and error anymore, because they've gone through the process, they've put in the time. And so when they're tuning a drum, they can get it right the first time. Yeah, because they've gone through that process already. Yeah, cool. So that is the session on tuning a drum and drum maintenance and drum care. Thank you all so much for coming. Okay. Yeah.